Right, welcome back everyone. The section that we're going to look at now is speciation, which is something that also can crop up as a good couple of marks in your paper and paper 2. But before we start with the actual thing, we actually have to break the thing down. We have to look at a few words, again, because until that makes sense, until some of the, the definitions make sense, and before we've cleared that up, this concept is very difficult to actually grasp. Then it's learning like a parrot, you haven't understood anything. So the first thing that we have to know is what a species is, because this is where speciation kind of takes its root word from. Okay, so a species is a group of animals that show the following. They share similar characteristics. Okay, so they look the same. All right. They are able to interbreed. All right, with each other. They are able to produce viable offspring. Okay, and the viable offspring are fertile. Okay, and those 4 things are quite important. They have to share similar characteristics. They have to look quite the same. They have to be able to interbreed within that species. Okay, they have to be able to produce viable offspring. Viable means that these offspring are able to mature and grow, okay, and reach sexual maturity. But then the catch is that they also have to be fertile. The offspring are required to be able to carry on with this process of reproduction. Okay, so with those 4 things explaining a species, the next thing we have to know is a population. Okay, and a population, sorry, if we just move up here, is a group of organisms, okay, that belong to the same species, that are occupying the same space and time, and are also able to interbreed and produce viable, fertile offspring. Okay, so these two concepts, this idea of what a species is, and the idea which follows on from that, what a population is very important. Until we understand those things, okay, and understand what the characteristics are that are kind of needed to be classified as either a population or a species, it makes speciation very difficult. But with that being said and with that being done, speciation is when we have a new species developing, okay, from an existing one. Okay, so we have a new species that is going to develop from an existing species. Okay, and there are 2 ways in which speciation can happen. Okay, the first one is called allopatric speciation. Okay, and what has to happen here is that there has to be some sort of geographical barrier. Okay, so there's either something like a mountain, or there is something like a river, or something geographical, something that has to kind of do with a physical barrier, I suppose is another way in which we can describe this barrier. Okay, and what basically happens is this. If we start over here, okay, you have the original species, okay, and the thing that we need to know about this species is that they show a great deal of variation. Okay, whatever species it is that we are speaking about, it doesn't really matter. It could be goats, it could be squirrels, it could be plants, whatever the case is, okay. What we see is that from here you have 2 definite groups, okay. Okay, you're going to have a group A, and you're going to have a group B, okay, that have originated from this genetically varied population to start with. Okay, and like we said, maybe let's just say this species gets to a mountain. Okay, literally, there's a mountain over here. Some species go this side of the mountain. Some of this original species go this side of the mountain. And now what we have is they aren't able to get back to each other. Okay, they go their separate ways. And let's say, for example, again, climatic conditions are very different. So what you have over here, let's say, is very dry and hot conditions. And here you have very wet and you have cooler conditions. Okay? What happens with speciation is that after a good couple of years, again, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years down the line, because these organisms have adapted to these conditions, and because group B has adapted to these conditions, okay, if we were able to remove that physical barrier, okay, so we were able to somehow just whatever, move the mountain or just get these things back to each other. What happens with speciation, okay, at the end is that this group is so distinctly different to that group, okay, that they can no longer interbreed. Then speciation has happened. When something happens, okay, which results in an original, kind of an ancestor species, I suppose we can say, or a starting point, the original species, when something physical has resulted in a split, okay, in this species to result in two different groups, and even if after this process you are able to remove the physical barrier and allow these organisms to meet and to kind of interact, speciation has happened when this group looks a little bit similar, to each other. All of the individuals here look similar. They are able to interbreed. They produce fertile offspring that are viable. The same has happened over here. But speciation has happened when, if you try and mix these groups again, they are not able to interbreed. Okay? They are not able to interbreed. And they are not able to produce viable offspring. And definitely not fertile offspring. Okay, then we know that speciation has happened. It results in two separate species being produced, okay, that by the end of this process are so different to each other that even if they are allowed to mix again, if we are able to move this mountain or to move a river or build a bridge or whatever the case might be, and we allow organisms to meet and to spend a bit of time together and interact, they are not going to be able to produce viable, fertile offspring. Because these things have become one species on their own. These groups over here, these organisms in this group, have become a species on their own. Okay? Which is what allopatric speciation is about. There is some physical, geographical barrier, okay, that has caused the split of an original group, okay, in that group, and that split has resulted in two separate species developing. Okay, and even if we allow them to mix, there will be no inbreeding or interbreeding rather going on.